Okay, so we've started talking about ecosystems. We know that ecosystems are very diverse, there are lots of players in them. So today we're going to talk about producers, consumers, and decomposers, and we're going to talk about how they play a part in certain ecosystems. So ecosystems need all three. They need producers, they need consumers, and they need decomposers. In a couple of lessons, you're going to start looking at food webs, and you're really going to be able to see why all three of these players are important and how they keep the ecosystem going. So today we're going to talk about what each of those three things are. So you're on lesson 4 in school's PLP, and every ecosystem, we know that every organism has to have energy to live. You've got to have energy, and we get our energy. We'll talk about where we get our energy from, but you can think you get it when you eat, from your food. Everybody has to have, any living thing has to have energy in order to live. So that's going to be broken down into one of two ways. You're either a producer or you're a consumer. So you either are a producer of energy or a consumer of energy. So we're going to first talk about producers. And if you look at the word producer, you see produce in it. So if you produce something, you make it. And that's what a producer does. Producers make their own food. So they don't have to go out and look for food. They make everything they need. Our producers in ecosystems, all plants are producers. Some bacteria and some protists are producers, but not all of them. But all plants are producers. And so plants produce their own food through a process called photosynthesis. And you're going to read about that in this lesson. And so what photosynthesis does, it takes in carbon dioxide out of the air. Well, how does carbon dioxide get into the air? Anytime we breathe, we inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. So we're putting it out into the atmosphere. When we drive, the exhaust in our vehicles puts it out. So carbon dioxide is out there. Plants take that carbon dioxide in. They take in sunlight, they take in water. And through the process of photosynthesis, they produce sugar, which is how they get their energy, and they also produce oxygen. So they take in carbon dioxide and they put out oxygen. Well, that's super important because we're the ones who need the oxygen to live. So producers produce their own food. But then we have consumers, and consumers cannot produce their own food. So they have to eat something for energy. So think about us, humans. Can we produce our own food? And by produce our own food, I don't mean that you can go to the cabinet and find something to cook, because you're not producing it. You're not making that food. Somehow else it had to be made. We can't. Like, I could sit here for a week and just sit and say, but come on, photosynthesis, make food. It's never going to happen. I don't have that capability. Plants, some bacteria, some protists, they're the only ones that can. So we have to get food from somewhere else. So that's going to be, consumers can be broken into one of 4 categories. We have omnivores, which most people are omnivores, unless they're vegetarian or vegan or follow specific diets. Omnivores eat both meat and plants. So that means if you go to Wendy's, you get your cheeseburger and it's got lettuce and tomato on it. You're an omnivore. You've got meat, you've got plants. Some consumers are herbivores. It starts with an H. That H is silent. So herbivores eat only plants. So that's some people, but also think about your animals. Think about a rabbit. As a rabbit's hopping through the forest, do you think a rabbit's going to stop and chow down on a steak? Or is it probably just going to stick with plants? It's just going to stick with plants. So it's an herbivore. We also have carnivores. Carnivores only eat meat. They don't eat plants. They only eat meat. So think about if you were to go on an African safari, you're going to see lots of carnivores probably. You could see lions. You could see tigers. Those animals, they're not going to eat. They're not going to stop for a salad. They want meat. Now, the fourth one, so we had omnivore, herbivore, carnivore. The fourth one is really important to ecosystems. They're called decomposers. And so decomposers, and there's that word decomposer, they break down dead organisms. So you might think that's disgusting. Why are we talking about that? But think about it. In an ecosystem, things die. Plants die, animals die. It happens. And there needs to be something. We need these decomposers to do something with those dead organisms. Otherwise, it would mess up how the whole ecosystem works. So we have fungi like mushrooms, different fungus, and fungi and bacteria, they decompose on dead plants. So they break down and they get their energy from dead plants. But then we also have scavengers. And scavengers they don't want anything to do with dead plants, but they want dead animals. And so some examples of those are like vultures and hyenas. If you're ever driving down the road and a raccoon's been hit on the side of the road and you see really big buzzards or vultures, that's what they're doing. They're scavengers. They are scavenging for meat. They didn't have to work for it. They just come in when something's already dead. So they clean up animals that are already dead, that have died for whatever reason. Another example of a decomposer are hyenas. So what hyenas will do is they'll wait for a lion to kill something, like the lion kills a zebra. They'll wait. They'll see the lion will eat what it wants of the zebra, and then it'll leave. And then the hyenas will come in, and they'll clean up whatever's left. So decomposers, these scavengers, they're not going out and finding live food. They're finding dead food, dead organisms, and that's what they feed on, and that's how they get their energy.